History is full of heroes, inventors, leaders, artists, and saints who left an everlasting mark on humanity. But behind those statues, medals, and textbooks, uncomfortable truths hide. Figures we admire and celebrate also had a dark side that many prefer to forget. In this video, we're going to explore 15 great historical figures who, although they changed the world, also left deep stains on their legacy. Some were geniuses with cruel practices. Others, champions of freedom with racist beliefs. And others, symbols of peace who hid violence in their private lives. The question is inevitable. Can we admire their achievements without excusing their mistakes? Stay until the end, because besides learning these stories, we'll reveal a ranking of the 3 most controversial figures and reflect on a dilemma that remains alive today. Before we begin, remember, like this video if you enjoy content that reveals what's not always told, and subscribe so you don't miss upcoming episodes. Now, get ready, because what you discover today will change the way you see your historical heroes. History has a strange habit, elevating some figures to the level of heroes, almost as if they were untouchable. In textbooks and movies, we often see them as perfect figures, symbols of progress, courage, or brilliance. But reality is different. Every human being, even the most admired, has light and shadow. The achievements of an inventor, a leader, or an artist can coexist with cruel decisions, moral mistakes, or attitudes that today we consider unacceptable. And yet, many times, these aspects are hidden or minimized, as if accepting the contradiction were too uncomfortable. This video is not meant to destroy idols or deny their contributions. The goal is to show the complete history, greatness alongside its contradictions. Because understanding the dual nature of these figures helps us look at the past with critical eyes and, at the same time, reflect on the present. Thomas Edison is remembered as one of the greatest inventors in history. The electric light bulb, the phonograph, and even the early stages of cinema are linked to his name. He lived during the Industrial Revolution, a time of fierce competition where electricity was the most important technological battlefield. But behind that brilliant legacy was a dark side. During the so-called War of Currents, Edison took his rivalry with Nikola Tesla to unexpected extremes. To prove that Tesla's alternating current was dangerous, Edison resorted to cruel experiments on animals. Dogs, cats, and even an elephant were electrocuted in public. His strategy was not only ruthless, it manipulated people's fear to serve his interests. Today, that side sparks debate. Can we separate the genius who illuminated the world from the man who used cruelty as a propaganda tool? Perhaps Edison's story reminds us that innovation and ethics do not always go hand in hand. Mahatma Gandhi is one of the names most associated with peace and non-violent resistance. He was the central figure in India's independence from the British Empire and became a global symbol of peaceful struggle. However, his life also has an uncomfortable side. During his years in South Africa, Gandhi wrote and made derogatory statements about Africans, whom he considered inferior. Those records have not disappeared and continue to provoke intense debates today. In Ghana, for example, university students have protested to remove statues of Gandhi, arguing that it is wrong to honor someone who promoted racist views, even if he later changed his stance. This contradiction raises a dilemma: can a leader be both a defender of freedom and a bearer of prejudice? Gandhi's figure, with all its greatness, reminds us that even icons of justice were not free from human errors. Abraham Lincoln is remembered as the president who abolished slavery in the United States and led the country during the Civil War. His figure has become a symbol of freedom and justice, and his Gettysburg Address still resonates as one of the most inspiring speeches in history. But Lincoln also made decisions that are questionable today. In 1863, he promoted a plan to colonize Haiti and resettle hundreds of freed African Americans there. The idea was that, although they were no longer slaves, they should not live as equals within the United States. The project failed. Conditions were terrible, many settlers died, and the plan was abandoned, leaving a painful mark on those involved. This episode shows that even a leader who fought for freedom could hold limited racial views. Lincoln represents, at the same time, the triumph of emancipation and the persistence of prejudices that shaped an entire nation. Vladimir Ilyich Lenin is seen as the architect of the Russian Revolution of 1917 and the founder of the world's first socialist state. His leadership overthrew the old Tsarist regime and ushered in a new political era that would define the 20th century. But alongside that revolution came the shadow of terror. Under Lenin's direction, the Chaika was created, a secret police force tasked with crushing any opposition. Thousands of people were arrested, tortured, and executed in the name of the revolutionary cause. This period, known as the Red Terror, laid the groundwork for decades of political repression in the Soviet Union. Lenin justified these actions as necessary to protect the revolution, but the line between justice and cruelty became blurred. His figure continues to divide opinions, to some, a visionary leader, to others, the origin of a system defined by fear. Lenin embodies how a utopia can transform into a regime of terror when freedom is sacrificed in the name of ideology. Winston Churchill is remembered as the British Prime Minister who stood firmly against Hitler during World War II. His oratory and leadership inspired millions, which is why he is often regarded as one of the great heroes of the 20th century. However, there is a dark chapter in his history. In 1943, the Bengal region in India suffered a devastating famine that killed between 2 and 3 million people. While the population starved, Churchill's policies maintained food exports to Britain and its armies, with very little aid sent to those affected. Many historians argue that his imperialist outlook and disdain for Indians worsened the tragedy. For Churchill, saving the empire was more important than alleviating the suffering of its colonies. This contrast shows how one man can be celebrated as a savior in one place and, at the same time, remembered as responsible for a catastrophe elsewhere. Churchill was a hero to the West, but his legacy in India remains steeped in pain and controversy. Theodore Seuss Geisel, globally known as Dr. Seuss, is one of the most beloved children's authors of the 20th century. His colorful books and fantastical characters shaped the childhood of millions and left a lasting mark on popular culture. But behind that cheerful image lies a bitter story. While his wife Helen Palmer struggled with a serious illness, Seuss began an extramarital affair. The emotional suffering this caused led Helen to commit suicide in 1967. This episode reveals a deep contradiction: a man who seemed devoted to bringing joy to children, but whose private life was marked by pain and betrayal. Today, many readers still enjoy his work but simultaneously wonder how to separate the creative writer from the husband who failed to support his spouse in the hardest moments. The story of Dr. Seuss reminds us that even creators of magical worlds can harbor shadows difficult to ignore. Albert Einstein is recognized as one of the greatest scientists of all time. His theory of relativity transformed physics and forever changed our understanding of the universe. Yet in his personal life, the genius had a less luminous side. His first wife, Mileva Maric, also a physicist, was relegated to the background while Einstein advanced in his career. Private letters reveal cold and demanding attitudes. He imposed strict rules on her, such as not expecting affection from him, not speaking unless he requested it, and accepting an almost distant relationship in their own home. Although his public figure is that of a kind and charismatic man, his relationship with Mileva shows someone capable of control and neglecting human connection in favor of work and prestige. Einstein remains a symbol of genius, but his personal story reminds us that even the brightest minds can fail in the essentials: care and respect for those around them. John Lennon was one of the most influential musicians of the 20th century and one of the most visible voices of the pacifist movement. With songs like Imagine, he became a global symbol of love, peace, and hope. But his private life contrasts with that message. In several interviews, Lennon admitted to having exercised physical violence against women in his youth. Behind the pacifist icon was a story of contradictions, marked by behaviors that are unacceptable today. This contrast raises a difficult question: how do you reconcile the artist who called for peace with the man who did not always live in harmony in his personal life? John Lennon left a musical legacy that continues to inspire generations, but his story also reminds us that even advocates of peace can hide inner conflicts and mistakes that should not be ignored. Walt Disney is remembered as the man who transformed entertainment and children's imagination. From his mind came Mickey Mouse, Snow White, and countless magical worlds that still live on in films and theme parks today. But behind the magic, there was also controversy. During the animators' strikes in the 1940s, Disney pursued and fired workers who demanded better working conditions. His business vision led him to confront those he considered a threat to his company, even if they were the very artists who had made his success possible. Moreover, during the years of the so-called witch hunts in the United States, he collaborated with the FBI by pointing out employees suspected of sympathizing with communism. That collaboration made him an ally of a system that persecuted and censored many citizens. Disney was a creative genius, but also a strict and distrustful businessman. His story shows how, even in the realm of fantasy, power and fear left marks that are hard to ignore. Queen Victoria ruled Great Britain for more than 6 decades, a period known as the Victorian era. Under her reign, the British Empire reached its greatest expansion and became a global power. However, imperial greatness came at a huge human cost. During her rule, India, the jewel in the British crown, suffered several devastating famines. Millions of people died while agricultural production was redirected to maintain exports that fed the empire. The indifference of British authorities, and the lack of effective measures to alleviate the suffering, left a legacy of exploitation and neglect. For many in the colonies, Victoria was not a maternal figure but the face of a system that prioritized power over human life. Today, her image continues to divide opinions, a symbol of modernization for some, but also of domination and tragedy for others. Queen Victoria represents how the splendor of an empire can be built on the shadows of hunger and misery. Elvis Presley, known as the King of Rock and Roll, revolutionized popular music and forever changed youth culture in the 1950s. His style, voice, and charisma made him a global idol who is still revered today. But his private life reveals far less admirable aspects. When he met Priscilla Beaulieu, she was only 14, and he was 24. Their relationship, which began under those circumstances, would today be seen as a clear abuse of power and influence. Additionally, in his later years, Elvis fell into a spiral of drug addictions that deteriorated his health and led to a premature death at 42. The image of a vibrant artist ended up overshadowed by the weight of his excesses. Elvis Presley remains a music icon, but also a reminder of how fame can conceal unequal relationships and destroy those who cannot escape their own demons. Martin Luther is recognized as the father of the Protestant Reformation. In the 16th century, he challenged the authority of the Pope and paved the way for a new form of Christianity that transformed Europe. His intellectual courage and insistence that faith should be above religious institutions made him a symbol of spiritual freedom. But that same figure also wrote deeply hostile texts against the Jewish community. In his later years, Luther published sermons urging the destruction of synagogues, the confiscation of property, and the expulsion of Jews from Germany. His words fueled centuries of anti-Jewish sentiment that resonated in later extremist movements. This contradiction raises an uncomfortable debate. A man who preached faith and spiritual renewal also planted seeds of hatred that had terrible consequences in European history. Luther shows that even reformers who seek freedom can, at the same time, become spokespeople for intolerance. Henry Ford revolutionized the automotive industry with assembly line production. Thanks to him, the automobile ceased to be a luxury and became an accessible product for millions of people. His vision transformed not only the economy of the United States but also daily life around the world. However, Ford also spread deeply harmful ideas. Through his newspaper, he published a series of articles titled The International Jew, promoting conspiracy theories and anti-Semitic messages. These writings were compiled into a book that circulated widely, even inspiring Adolf Hitler, who cited it as an influence. The paradox is clear. A man who promoted modernity and technological progress also contributed to spreading prejudices that fueled one of the darkest chapters of the 20th century. Henry Ford's legacy shows how an industrial genius can also become a propagator of ideas that destroy rather than build. Throughout this journey, we have seen 15 figures who marked history with extraordinary achievements, but also with shadows hard to ignore. Inventors, leaders, artists, and reformers demonstrated that humans can reach greatness while also committing profound mistakes. Of all of them, 3 stand out for the magnitude of their contradictions. Edison, the genius of light, who used cruelty to win a technological battle. Churchill, World War II hero, who allowed a devastating famine in India. And Henry Ford, pioneer of the modern automobile, who spread anti-Semitic ideas that crossed borders and generations. These stories pose a question that remains relevant. Can we admire someone's achievements without justifying their mistakes? Or should we look at heroes with all their nuances, understanding that history is not written in black and white? The answer, perhaps, lies in not idealizing, but in learning. Recognizing the successes that changed the world, but also the mistakes we must not repeat. This is the double face of history, a reminder that behind every statue is a human being, with virtues and flaws, with light and shadow. If this video helped you see history with more nuance, share your opinion in the comments. Can we admire someone's achievements without justifying their mistakes? Share this content with those who enjoy critical history, subscribe so you don't miss the next episodes, and leave a like so this work reaches more people. Thank you for watching.